Hi guys, and welcome back to SwitchUp. Sorry, I've had a major family crisis, so I haven't been around a great deal, but thankfully everything's now sorted. Thanks to Devolver for the review copy and for being amazing at choosing their games. You have that Midas touch. My Friend Pedro blends a Deadpool style humour with a bullet time mechanic seen most recently in the fantastic Katana Zero, and more nostalgically Max Payne, Starsky and Hutch, Sam and Max, Unknown Guy and Pedro the Banana. Let's find out. First thing you should know quite early off the bat is that you're given a few choices of difficulty. The easier two will give you some form of regenerating health, whereas the hardest follows a more traditional route with no health regeneration and relying on pickups only. This was the route that I wanted to take. I do have a bit of an issue with regenerating health, and I found the game all the better for taking this latter option. An initially opaque story is drip fed to you through that most overused gameplay mechanic, the talking banana. Yep, your friend Pedro is a banana, and he's a pretty good one, giving you advice, tips and tutorials, and a veritable banana bucket load of one-liners. Control of your protagonist is where the game excels, following some traditional twin stick tropes such as the right stick allowing directional aiming, but also adding several new gameplay mechanics to make controlling the main character a delight. Jumping and wall jumping are as easy as a button tap, but incoming bullets can be rolled and slipped like Tyson Fury in his most recent bout. To make things a little easier, as performing this in real time is for the absolute masters, but it is possible later in the game, you have the option to slow time to a crawl. Doing so will allow the same level of aiming control and aid in tactical decisions on the fly when faced with many enemies. The second gameplay mechanic that is the real depth of the game, and the one that I failed so miserably with, is momentum. Now every kill you get will increase your ever dwindling score multiplier, but in addition boosts up your remaining bullet time pool, shown here. What this means from a gameplay standpoint is that the skilled player will want to keep this multiplier increasing, and as such will have to dive in head first into danger continuously rather than to rest and assess, as will be the inclination of most new players, myself included. If your multiplier counter runs down before, the cheeky face of Pedro will give you some ideas as to how you did, with an ecstatic expression meaning you obviously did very well, and a face I can only describe as meh, meaning something quite different. You can kill every enemy in an area without taking a hit, but if you do so at a snail's pace, then Pedro is not going to be impressed. As well as pace, the manner in which you dispatch the goons is important. Using the split aiming ability can be a little tricky to get to grips with, but essentially allows you to sticky lock on with one gun to an enemy while still having free control of the other. One of my biggest gripes early on was how tricky it could be to get this right simply due to the button placement, as you'd be pressing potentially 3 buttons at the same time, one to split aim, one to dodge bullets, and then clicking in the stick to slow time, which isn't easy at the best of times, but with a set of Joy-Con, forget about it. What Pedro does in response to this is allow for full customization of every single button in the game, and it didn't take me long to remap this and find a setup that just worked well so that I didn't have to do the claw grip. Later in the experience, you'll be able to use a number of transportation methods, from the cool but standard motorbike to the totally unexpected skateboard, which uses physics brilliantly, with small details like flicking it back over if you've crashed out. There are many moments you'll want to replay twice when you find yourself sat with a large grin on your face after achieving something immensely cool. I guess it plays out like a sandbox kill 'em up combined with a 2D side-scroller, giving you enough physics-based tools such as throwing objects, including the gelatinous remains of Bob, aka Guard X, at his mate Smith, aka Guard Y, all the while twin stick shooting 2 other enemies. There are many gameplay set pieces I've never experienced, and although some stages do drag on and there's a touch of repetition, despite the excellent shooting mechanics and ever-growing arsenal of weapons, Pedro feels new. Perhaps it's the mixture of the surreal and the ordinary, underpinned with a narcissistic banana that elevates it above the average run and gun, or maybe it's this. Pedro offers two very distinct styles of play that will appeal equally to unique gamers. The slower methodical approach is what I initially went for, ambling through levels, solving some platform-based puzzles, dodging lasers and shooting tons of goons as I work my way across the largely linear 2D levels, moving from left to right with a touch of verticality thrown in for good measure and a spattering of boss fights. That's all well and good and is fun, but I really missed the meat, I think. It was only upon restarting the game and focusing on maintaining that high score multiplier did the nuance hit me. Every level could be one continuous cut, like a scene from Daredevil or the Raid movies. All of a sudden I was restarting stages over and over, climbing the global leaderboards and just loving seeing the channel name rise above some huge others in our industry. In short, it felt like I was back in the arcades. Of the very few negatives I could level at my friend Pedro, I'd say that some of the level design is a touch repetitive, particularly in some earlier stages, but the developers really mixed it up later. Apart from that, the load times are a smidgen longer than I would have liked, but this is only really noticeable when high score chasing, with looping the same stage over and over. Overall gameplay is a delight and requires skill and on-the-fly tactics to truly excel at. It scores 19 out of 20, while controlling the character is good, bar the slightly fiddly learning curve and an aim that just feels a tiny bit difficult to be precise due to the high levels of auto-aiming, which can thankfully be reduced, but strangely not entirely removed. Controls score 16 out of 20. The character models in my friend Pedro strangely remind me of those from the classic light gun game Time Crisis. Whether or not this was intentional, if it was, it works for the arcade style the game goes for, and if not, they look a little clunky. Explosions on the Switch version are a touch weaker than other consoles, but the visual win comes from the performance and animation. Both are very strong. When I first played the game back at EGX in April, the performance wasn't quite there yet. Everything is now buttery smooth and responsive. The animations are the area that tie that gunplay, slow-mo and controls so well together, and rolling your way past enemy fire ignites my inner John Wick. My only negative for visuals would be some repetition, especially in one later stage. I thought I'd actually started the level over again by mistake. Then they completely shut me up with a level so left field and colourful I had to doff my virtual cap to them. Audio is unbelievably good. Coming from legendary creators, it feels very similar to the recent Katana Zero in this regard, and when chasing high scores, the adrenaline flows. There aren't any voices, only a sound effect accompanying the on-screen dialogue, which is well written and quirky. Weapon sounds are a win on every count, with a ka-chunk ka-chunk of the slow-motion bullets replaced by a rapid firecracker of death when you return to normal speed. Visuals score 16 out of 20 and the audio 18 out of 20. The game costs £15.29, $16.99 or €16.99. It's a decent price. They added a sweetener for those that needed it at 20% off if you pre-ordered, and I wouldn't usually have recommended anyone do that with any game these days. However, Devolver has a track record of unique and wonderfully weird experiences across all platforms. Games like APOW and the Red Strings Club were so left field but also quirky implementations of subgenres done so well. There are quite a few levels on offer here. I didn't keep a track of how many hours it took to finish. I think it was in the region of 6 to 10, but then I did take it at quite a leisurely pace. The real addiction began when I started the game for a second time, with the high score chasing element really kicking in. That's where the longevity will come for most. Value scores 17 out of 20. No, it isn't the longest game, but a well-rounded tale that can be enjoyed over and over to beat those high scores. So there we have it. Pedro for me is a triumph. When you can face 100 clone enemies and each experience feel like it offers you a fun tactical challenge, something's definitely right. Here that comes from a tight score multiplier mechanic, excellent controls, and an unusual and intriguing double act. It scores 86%. Thanks so much to our patrons who support the channel each and every month. Remember, we're giving away a free game each month to the subscriber most active on the channel, as well as one randomly selected patron. So if you fancy joining us, all the links are down below, or you can hit that subscribe button. Thanks to all the support you guys have given us, and if you want to join the Discord, there's a good community over there as well. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!